Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at all the SPL action. I'm your host, Apam, and this week I'm joined by two of our regular guests, Frost and Wraith, and we have a special guest this week. The coach of Pittsburgh Knights, El Chuckles, joins us as well to discuss the Phase 2 playoffs. The lead admin for the SPL, Cooper, joins me a little bit later on to talk about this whole year on the whole, so be sure to stick around for that. But we're here to discuss the playoff games, so let's start with Radiance versus PK. And I can see you guys tried your best to win in all of these games. You know, you guys picked the set mid early on. You get Hebo mid in game 3. And it just seems like none of your picks end up working out at all. What went wrong in your estimation here?
I mean, it's a combination of things, right? Like game 1, our draft is kind of just, the classic PK where we just switch up everything with 20 seconds left of the bank time. So we just kind of end up letting through Persephone without really an answer for it. And that just kind of feels bad, especially for Fred, who, if you're watching over his shoulder like I was, just gets absolutely blasted every single team fight. So it's just super difficult to play into. And then after that, we do a decent job of holding on, and then all it takes is just getting picked 1 or 2 times. Then you just lose any ability to fight back, and then it kind of just gets worse from there. I think the drafts got better as the set went on, but game 2 was kind of a high execution draft, and again, once you start getting picked and poked out, then you only have so many opportunities to make plays and win team fights, and if you lose them and you split up or whatever, then you're just always going to lose.
Any thoughts, Wraith or Frost?
Got a few here. Have at it, Wraith, while I compose mine.
I was going to say I was on dad duty, so I didn't actually get to watch the game. I wanted to, believe me.
Sure. Frost?
All right, so I've got a few nitpicky things here. Where Aurora, and it's one of those things that I've talked about where it's, you ever meet somebody and you dislike them and you don't know why, and then you realize, oh God, it's because they're very similar to me. I see a lot of myself in them, and that's sort of that was Aurora in all 3 games, where he does this thing where he sort of forgets that he is the support. He's out there diving with the front line and just kind of leaving the back line exposed, and the entire time I'm just thinking there's got to be something about this playstyle. I'm assuming he believes either he's out of practice, which can be a thing because they did have that sort of falling out, or he's assuming that the better way to support is to cause the team fights to turn into a 4v5. It just all around is an easier time, and he's always had those aggressive picks on him. And then another thing that I noticed was Zap didn't get Heim. I think Zap is possibly one of the best Heims, and if not the best in the league, and Radiance is not shy of taking that away from him. The same way that they're not shy of taking Hell away from Paul, they're not shy of taking Heim from him.
One thing I noticed, or at least it seemed, that a lot of these games ended up pretty methodical. There wasn't a lot of early grouping to fight early on, like we see in some other SPL sets with other teams. Why do you think that is? Why was it sort of slow and not as bloody as we've seen maybe in some of the other Pro League matches this season?
I feel like that's just tournament style play, right? I mean, I feel like every time it's been a mid-season like Valencia or SWC, it's always cautious because nobody wants to throw a lead, right? I mean, I thought I saw a stat somewhere. Maybe I'll hit up Gore on Twitter, but like the average number of kills per game during an SWC tournament versus every other LAN or every other online play has to be half, right? Because there's stuff on the line, so you don't take as many risks, right? It's $100,000 or whatever the hell it was, right?
I don't know. I felt like we still saw some other teams play aggressively early on and not worry too much about kills. I'm looking to some of the other sets that happened this weekend as well. But that didn't really show up here. I remember, I think in the first game, it was 2-2 until well into almost the late game. I want to say 20 minutes.
18, 20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, and then finally a team fight occurs near like your tier 2 tower after what felt like a long time. And I think in some of the other matches there was a bit more aggression from both teams early on, and maybe just a willingness to fight from both teams early on that kind of was lacking in this game. Did you feel that at all, Chuck?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely seemed like, at least in like game 1 and game 2, that both teams are sort of feeling each other out for the early game. We didn't really want to like commit too much, or like, there might be hesitation on whether we could make a play, and then in the space of that hesitation, like the play gets lost. So then we're like, I guess we'll come back next minute.
Right.
And then if nothing happens in that next minute, then the game's just going to get longer and longer. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit different in game 3 where we just get picked early and then it just starts turning into a choke out. But I mean, in these sort of tournament games, at least for it's kind of the play style for both of our teams, right? At least when we play each other, because I think teams tend to try to match the energy of the other team a lot of the time. So if both of you are kind of like, I don't know if we want to hard commit to this blue buff invade or red buff invade, then you're kind of both just gonna sit and chill until, like you said, 20 minutes where the game suddenly gets decided.
Does it feel like Radiance just has an odd play style into the Knights? Because guessing how the outcome would be before it all went through, I was figuring the teams that were facing off against each other, they kind of the winning team sort of had their matchup favorite. Like I guess Pokemon in a way, electric versus fire, metal, whatever. They all have different strengths and weaknesses against each other. Where it seems as if your team, they weren't really drafting solutions, more so banning out problems because they get run over the first game. Second game, the solution was ban out Guan. Second game, ban out the Guan, and then the Ra that also did some work. So is it just because Zap and Neil are notorious for saying, we play our own game, we don't care what anybody says, they're the Chads of Smite, so we just play our game and don't really care about what anyone else does. So is it harder for them to draft around other teams, or is it just sort of a stubbornness of we play our own game, and if something messes with it, well, we just try to ban it?
I mean, obviously, like, I think every team tries to, adjust picks and bans towards, the other team. So I think our issue in our set was more that we didn't do that correctly. Like, I feel like we have drafts that can play well into Radiance and can, do okay into like these sort of like each team, but picking them is one thing, which we didn't do game 1, and executing it is also another, which we kind of ended up not doing so great in the next 2.
Sure. I know we didn't mention the Zhang Kui too much, maybe because it wasn't super effective in game 2. I don't think we've really seen Zhang except in the solo lane here. I think Final K was maybe the other person who played it earlier on in the SPL. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. But it seems like a pretty odd pick. Is this something that you knew was coming, or is this sort of like a game day, 20 seconds left of bank time? Where he's like, lock it in, boys.
This is not an approved character for you.
I mean, he did get buffed in the patch previous, so
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we played him a little bit, and it seemed decently promising in a scrim, so we kind of just, slotted into the old wheelhouse, and, on game day we decided to whip it out. Obviously, didn't turn out too well, but
yeah,
I mean, there was definitely, a bit of trial and error behind it.
Sure.
I feel with 2 months between the next tournament, I don't think there's much to give away there.
All right, any final thoughts about this Radiance versus PK set before we move on to the next set of the Phase 2 playoffs?
It went about as I had expected. Benji, though, he's got a fire in him. It's like, oof. it doesn't feel like you're facing off against Radiance. It feels like if you can deal with Benji, then you've got the rest of it. But man, he makes so much room. Does incredibly well there.
Yeah, he was definitely an impressive force. I think solo laners in general had probably the best individual showing this tournament.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
All right, then moving on to Sanguine versus Renegades. And I think this is kind of an upset, but I think everyone sort of expected that the Renegades could at least pull something like this off. And Sanguine looked pretty good in game 1, but then there was a crazy play at the Phoenix with Venenu, I believe, in game 2, Krakening, Sanguine, the whole team comes to dive the Titan, and they get held off in the base. And I think that game 2 win really gave a lot of momentum for the Renegades as they go on to sort of reverse sweep it here, or I guess sort of a gentleman's sweep, if you will, and take this one from Sanguine 3-1. All I gotta say here is Jake has got great Ymir walls. I think this playoff tournament has shown us just how good Jake can be with Ymir. I think maybe like right next to PBM, and even sometimes better than PBM. I think a lot of times just the quantity of effective walls from Jake was impressive, let alone just how effective they were.
Yeah, I mean, Jake's definitely stepped up a lot from, the expectations at the start of the year. So it's he's definitely, a force to be reckoned with in in scrims against him. If we just don't feel like playing against, those walls, then the Ymir just gets top banned every time, So.
Yeah. Well, and I think we'll see why other supports like Bobby, I think, have been sort of highly valuing a support like Ymir because of sort of the effectiveness we've gotten from these walls. Frost or Wraith, any thoughts on this set?
I mean, Jake he was the reason that this all came out to be. Not just that, but I'd anticipated a 3-1, but I gave it for Sanguine because I didn't think that Renegades would be sort of capable of stepping up to this bar. I didn't think this set would come down to anything Sanguine did aside from maybe change up their playstyle a little bit. It was all on Renegades. Can Renegades improve to take on Sanguine because they play, or they being Sanguine, play the exact same way all the time. They played the exact same way this time. I'm proud of Renegades and how they've done this year. To me, I've said all the time, Sanguine is the bottom seed of a legitimate league. Renegades, to me now, is stepping up to being a legitimate team.
Sure.
It's just not boding well for the Sanguine boys. I would love to see more experimentation or more aggressiveness, because when it came down to it, Renegades showed that they were the ones that could punish just as well as they could, but also, push forward with some aggression.
Yeah. I did want to mention both Lazra and Ven, I think, had very good sets here. I'm looking at the slash line here in game 2 where Lazra went 10-1 on the set jungle. And I think that continued along with him playing Serket later on in the series here to some great effectiveness. I think Lazra really showed up this tournament, starting especially in this set.
I feel like he was hot and cold. I feel like there was like the one game where he like popped off and he was like 10-1 or whatever it was. And then there was like another where it felt like he didn't do anything. He was like bottom of the damage charts for the whole time. Like I feel like I almost worry about him for next year, right? Because he has these moments of brilliance where he's like, you're like, oh my God, like he's playing out of his brain. And then he has these other games where I don't know if they're trying to like execute some team strat that he's not used to or comfortable with, but he feels like he goes from being like, adapting 2.0 to just a wet fart. And it's just like, you almost feel for him, right? Because he's got the capacity to do it. It's just his consistency just isn't there. But they pulled it out against Sanguine, right? So
he's a really good mid to late game player, though, and I think that's what Renegades try here, or show that they have adapted to doing, is that they pressure the red, they pressure the blue, they pressure out jungle, and that sort of allows Lazra some breathing room going into the mid game. Usually, my man's out of breath by mid, like, okay, cool, tier 1s are gone everywhere. There's fire minions going through the middle. What do I do now? The only thing I think is you get better at what you practice at. They finally have gotten better at getting him through the early game. They need to get better at getting him through the mid, getting him through the late game. Because as you said, it looks sometimes like he is adapting, and other times he is adapting lagging behind by like 2,000 ping. And I think it's just an issue of execution because you've got Jake, Barra, Ven together, and you've got Variety making room. Lasbro has a flanking sort of play style, and here's the issue: if a team of 5 is pushing up your 4, sometimes you can never catch up to actually hit that flank. Like they'll be at the Phoenix by the time you catch up. They just turn around and sort of murder you. And in the fights where he was a force to be reckoned with, he had much tighter spacing. Other times he sort of ran away too far and kind of committed to the flank. But it also does come down to sort of hesitation. Like if you're going to go for the flank, Lasbro, hit that flank hard or go push something else. Because I'm just watching him and he's sort of like, do I push waves? Do I come in for the fight? Ends up doing nothing, basing, and now he's got to defend the Phoenix.
Any other thoughts from you guys about this Sanguine versus RNG set? I know it was pretty surprising from the Renegades here. I guess also surprising from Sanguine sort of giving up this set to the Renegades in the best of 5. Any final thoughts from you guys about these games?
I mean, this set was right after we got blasted, so I didn't really watch it that intently.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's sort of the story of those teams, right? Like, Renegades always has the potential to, punch up if, things align and they, start playing as a unit. So, and like, Sanguine, when they are in that sort of slumping, not super aggressive form that they were known for at the start of the year, then like they can be taken advantage of. So
yeah,
I mean, I think pretty much everyone would have been right in saying that Sanguine, realistically should have won, or like going beforehand was favored to win the set, but I don't think it's surprising the way that it turned out.
Frost or Wraith, any final thoughts before we move on to the semifinal matches?
They've got 2 months or so. Sanguine really needs to change their playstyle. Rarely do I go, something's got to go, but this is, you've got on like a 2-year-old meta at this point, lads. Unless you can execute it perfectly, everyone knows what you're coming with at Worlds.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, over the course of the year, right? Like, Sanguine they have this one extremely predictable play style. I feel like we talk about it all the time. And I think it kind of bit them here. I don't know. We'll see. I tend to agree with Frost. We'll see if they can switch things up or come with something new or something that they got in their pocket.
I think it's good for seasonal placings, wins and losses there, but for a tournament, I don't think so.
Yeah, do you need to bring something that sort of breaks it open instead of just doing what you sort of know is good in the past?
Well, yeah, because it's all about metas. Everybody loves metas, but doesn't actually understand metas in a way. The stuff that you're going to play throughout the season, it is to win, but you also want to predict for the future. This is sort of Sanguine's motif where they can't really ever think 2 steps ahead, or if they do, it's just the 2 and not the 3, the 4, the 5. Other teams that have been playing here right now is when they're playing kind of back, kind of testing out what could work later on. Sanguine's just sort of showing up to work, essentially. It's just another day at the office, but it's a big old tournament.
Yeah, I got you. All right, moving on to the first semifinal game of this Phase 2 playoffs, which was Ghost versus Renegades. And Jake got Yamoja in game 1, and then I think Renegades decided that probably wasn't a good idea and tried to give him Ymir whenever they could. He looked great on the mirror after game 1, but I think game 1 really starts and ends with... did Final K get a triple kill early on? Maybe it was a double kill for sure. But the Osiris starts off, super big. Yeah, 7-0, I believe the Osiris starts off. And Osiris 7-0, that was pretty much good enough to win a lot of these SPL games. What are your first thoughts about this Ghost versus Renegades set? Do you think Renegades could have maybe taken some games, or was Ghost maybe toying with them a little bit?
Bit column A, bit from column B. I feel like Renegades sort of ran out of gas from playing against Sanguine, and Jake did get the emoji. It didn't work out as they intended. They kind of were forced to ban it afterwards. It's almost like Ghost called that bluff. And then we see them sort of go into the same playstyle that they used against Sanguine, and Ghost get to go, we didn't have to play. We got to watch your games. We know what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Chuck or Wraith, any thoughts about this Ghost versus Renegade
steamrolling? Any thoughts about the steamrolling?
I will say game 2 was very competitive, a very good showing from the Renegades, but I think very much to Frost's point, it seems like Renegades maybe lost the momentum somehow. I mean, they did throw a little bit in game 2, to be sure, but you kind of expect teams in this league to maybe stick together, the mental to be a little bit stronger, especially, sort of when it's time to bite the bullet in these tourney times.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this tournament especially, it came down to, and this set especially came down to, which team can consistently, show up to team fights or not just int a lead as soon as possible. Like in this set, like I feel like both teams weren't that consistent in their play, but I think Renegades just ended up not being consistent in the fights that mattered, which just ended up, them getting snowballed way too hard. Like there was obviously points where they could have come back,
right?
But I mean, against top teams like Ghost, they might fuck up, but if you fuck up at the same rate, then it's gonna devolve into a bit of a shit fest. So just depends on how things shake out.
Yeah. I did want to ask about these Rat solo builds. I think this might be the first and last time we saw Rat solo this tournament, and going with the flurry, the double flurry. I think both Variety and Final K went with this double flurry Acorn. What is Rat bring to the solo lane, and especially this, removing protections? I remember when we had Slaney on, he just said, man, the only good Acorn is the one that gives you more nuts, and all these other Acorns suck. That's why Rat should only be played in the jungle, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but we see Rat solo sort of be a contested pick in this set. Why is that?
I don't think just Rat solo, but sort of taking Rat. Lasbra, very good on Rat, like probably one of his better characters. You take the Rat, and it's just a matter of grab it. We don't care where we put it, but just take it. Either PBM's going to play it, either Sam's going to play it, or Fine's going to play it. Someone is going to play it, and Lasbra now has one less character to deal with.
Sure. Is just banning out Lasbra, you think?
Yeah, I believe that was very targeted ban. It was also just a sort of a call out to him in general, because you got Sam on like Susano. That's more a Lasbra god than a Sam god. I don't even know what happened to Sam here, because my boy, he had a rough time on that Susano. 3 and 8.
Yeah.
In the second game. Oh man, with the Capri too. But
well, I think he brought it back in the third game. I think that was the one with the sweet double tap. So
yeah. He was having it kind of rough. Like none of his ults were hitting to the point where I was saying he's not even using the ult for damage. He's using the ult to get close so he can 2 and then 1 and then 3. It's just like, Sam's Thor ult is just a really, really long blink.
I do want to bring up the Nox support, but I think it might be more appropriate to talk about it in the final set rather than this one. So
yeah, absolutely. I
think you have a point to it though. Like Ghost went up 2, and then they brought it out.
Sure.
I think it was a lukewarm pick, and PBM actually getting to test it out in this sort of set. I feel like if it had been any closer, we might not have seen Nox in this set, and we might not have seen it in the finals. But I think him actually getting to have a go on a sort of a high octane, high pressure situation, going, okay, this is kind of nuts. So I think that's more of it was a stomping ground and a testing ground for Ghost.
All right, go ahead, Chuck.
I mean, the character did get buffed, so I imagine, post-patch. Yeah, I imagine post-patch, Ghost just kind of grinded it out a bit, saw how it was going. I think it's, yeah, like you said, it's a little bit lukewarm. It's kind of, I mean, it's okay. It does supporty things, and with the buff, it's, you know, not as doesn't feel as bad when, you know, there's a pixel of a wall in between you and the other guy. So it's definitely more playable. You can, you know, use the one independent of the two. So, I mean, there's definitely merit, but yeah, I think it's definitely a you know, a third game we're up to sort of pick, and it obviously fit in the draft too. The amount of CC and presence they had with the Rat Claw.
Sure.
She's obnoxious to boot.
Yeah, I agree.
I avoided saying that.
Hey,
The god is so dumb.
Absolutely.
hey guys, unfortunately this week, Stephen Cooper was unable to schedule an interview with us just because there were some delays and he had some meetings that he had to attend to, so we're unable to interview him. But on the bright side, I have a super secret special guest for the player interview this week, so be sure to check that out, guys. I hope you guys all enjoy it. Thanks. Hey guys, I know it's unfortunate we couldn't have Stephen Cooper here to talk about the SPL, but I think I might have just got someone who, you know, can spice it up here in the player interview himself. I've got PolarBearMike here, the support from Ghost Gaming, the guys who just won the Phase 2 playoffs, joining me here. And I think we're just going to get right into it, talking about Phase 2 playoffs. What is the secret sauce that you guys have? I mean, you know, during the split, you know, sometimes things can look a little bit rough. I know when Slaney was on earlier around week 5, he said you guys were slumping, but playoffs time's coming around and you guys don't lose a game. It just looks a little too easy for you guys. What's going on?
I just think we went into the tournament really confident. I think we had some like meta adjustments that we wanted to try out that ended up working out for us, which when you decide to go into a tournament, for us, I just really cared about securing a bye. So I just really wanted to win like either our first round or if Radiance lost early, then that would have done it for us. So it was maybe a little bit risky, but it turned out that the stuff we wanted to try went pretty well. So it's nice to experiment with stuff like that, going into Worlds and just trying to shake things up a bit.
Sure. I gotta ask though about the Nox support here. Where did this come from? I know, you know, you've been a proponent of the Nox support, and so have some of the other SPL players. You know, Dardas comes to mind from back in the day, but you know, bringing it out in a high-profile tournament like this can be kind of risky. What was the thought process behind the Nox support?
Honestly, like my full like transparency answer is I still don't even know if I think it's that good. Basically the patch got released, I think, the Tuesday before the tournament. And maybe it was the week before or something, but I didn't know that her one was going through walls. And I'm pretty sure it was the Tuesday before the tournament, but her one was going through walls, and I saw it and I was thinking like, you know, that's pretty crazy. Like that's a bug. We were actually trying to see if she should be comp banned because it wasn't in the patch notes or anything.
Yeah.
So we had messaged Ajax and Kabam and we were like, hey, like Nox 1 is going through walls. It's intended, blah, blah, blah. It's not in patch notes. And then they decided that like it was intended. So I think we had a day of scrims versus PK and I just played it every game for fun. I had warmed up most of the other stuff I wanted to play for the tournament. And she just felt fine. She didn't feel OP, but she was just fine. And I just tried her, and I think game 3 versus Renegades, we were up 2-0 anyways.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll try it. Like, I'll see how it feels. It was fine. And then I just felt like it was pretty good into the comps Radiance had. So I just like tried it again, and yeah, it just went pretty well. I ended up missing a lot, but yeah, I was pretty surprised by like how well the God felt.
Sure. Okay. I mean, speaking of Jake, what were your sort of impressions of him? Like, we see you as sort of the preeminent Ymir player in the league, I would say. And I think Jake really impressed a lot of us. I know he impressed me with his Ymir play throughout the weekend on both day 1 and day 2. Can you talk about Jake and his Ymir play? You had the opportunity to play against it. Was this something that you were expecting? Did you expect to see Jake pull out all these great walls and stuff like that?
Yeah, we definitely expected it. I'd say Jake is pretty like far like the best Ymir player in the league, I would say. I think I've had like good games on it, but I think a lot of that is just because my team like around me is probably a little bit better. No shade to like Renegades. They're just like a little bit newer or like inexperienced figuring stuff out. So I think it's just like it's easier for a support player on teams that are winning to look really good. So I think that's why I've gotten credit. But Jake's just like a really good Ymir player. He's been a really good player this whole year. Like it's definitely from a supports perspective, it's definitely really nice to have new players like him and Ronnie kind of like hop into the league and look really good and just kind of like add their own flair to the role and just like kind of advance it a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of which, I mean, you're like one of the tenured supports. Do you feel like Jake and some of these newer players that have come in have sort of the ability to stay in this league over the long run here, have the longevity in this league?
Yeah, for sure. Jake and Rangu should just be like in the SPL like next year, and basically as long as they're like trying and carrying and improving, I think both of them are really good players. I probably would not have said the same about Bobby in the first phase, but I think Bobby or Inbound in the second phase, I think he improved a lot. I think you can like clearly tell that he like cares a lot, he puts a lot of effort in, and he just seems like he really has a lot of drive. And I think he pretty much ever since Sino joined the team, it kind of seemed like he's really like stepped up a bit. So yeah, I think the support role like going into the season was a little sketchy, and I wasn't really sure what to expect from a lot of the players. Like losing like Kalis, Emilzy, Trix Tank, they were just like big older names, but I think those guys have filled in really well for sure.
Sure. So my last main talking point here that I wanted to bring up to you guys was it felt like you were very okay, at least in the finals, with letting Radiance have Cupid. And then off of their Cupid first pick, it seemed like you would just instantly snatch up Set. Was this a calculated thing? You know, I hypothesized a little bit that you might have been baiting Cyclone into picking Cupid because he's their only Set player on that team. Is that something that you guys are actually doing, or am I talking out of my butt here?
I kind of think we were just like, I don't think you're like wrong, but I think we kind of just didn't care either way. Like, I think if they wanted to play Set, that was fine. We've played against it plenty of before, like specifically on Cyclone, our last set of the SPL. I think he played Set ADC versus us, and we're used to it from scrims against him or against other players in general. So I think we were just comfortable no matter what they wanted to do. I think for them, they probably felt a little bit more pressured into playing Cupid because we played it all 3 games versus Renegades.
Right. Okay.
And I think he brings some annoying matchups in general. I don't know if Set counters him really from like a soul lane perspective. I think it's probably like a fine matchup. But yeah, I kind of just think we happen to like play our style a little bit better than they played theirs. I don't think the draft, like in that perspective, I don't think we like countered them super hard. But yeah, we were definitely fine with whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, did you guys think Set was maybe like a defining pick during this tournament? It seemed like whenever he was played, he was popping off. Either I remember when Lazarus played him, he was popping off, and of course when Final K played him, you know, looked really great. Is this a god that people are trying to prioritize?
Yeah, I think people just like him a lot because I think he snowballs fights really hard. Like when he kind of gets to hard engage and he can get like just somebody really low off the bat, or if he gets a kill right off the bat, just his like ult is really good at just snowballing a fight and just kind of like basically tearing through an entire team. And I think there's just a lot of good like Set players. He got buffed a few times. I think like his scaling on his like ult and his one I think got changed. So he's kind of a flexible god as well because he's like pretty unique for assassins where he can be played jungle like Lasper did, but also his laning phase is really good because he has a lot of poke. So he kind of can be played in every role but support. And I think that alone, like whenever that happens with a god, whether he's like OP or not, or whether the god is OP or not he, but whether a god is OP or not, when you can be that flexible with them in drafts, it'll just shoot up in priority because like PK, for example, might really like it mid, but Renegades might like it jungle. We might like it solo. Radiance might like it ADC. So it suddenly becomes a contested pick where it's like either you need to be okay against it or you need to be willing to pick it high if you want it.
I know we talked to Chuckles, the coach of PK, this week also, and we asked him a little bit about our teams maybe saving things for Worlds or something like that. And he seemed to think that there's not really a reason to save anything for World because there are going to be, 2 patches here coming up before Worlds even happens. Is that sort of where you feel as well? Like, people were probably going all out with the strats that they thought would win for this tournament at least?
Yeah, I think that's how, whether people did that or not, I think that's how they should have approached it.
Yeah.
So I think Chuck is definitely correct with that. Like, even if there was no patch, a lot can change, right? Like, just from my experience scrimming going into Worlds, like even seasons, like I think season 5 there wasn't a major patch before Worlds, but like even without there being major changes, like us and Splice or Unite and Splice and scrims, like we created like a completely different start where like the solo laner would start in duo, and like even without, there weren't like targeted map changes or anything that made us try that. It was just kind of like how our scrim meta developed. So even if picks or the gods didn't get changed or balanced, the game, how it looked this past weekend compared to how it's going to look at Worlds, I think will be pretty substantially different. So I think it's always in people's interest to just like try whatever you think could be good and continuously like push the meta, because eventually like that's just how you get further and further ahead. Like if you hold things, you're just holding yourself back more than anything, in my opinion.
You know, Chuck in our episode was calling it a 2-month break, but it's actually closer to 6 weeks. Still a relatively long break between now and when you guys will be playing. What are you and maybe your teammates doing to stay focused over this long break? I know Chuck told us the PK guys are probably going to take a couple weeks off scrims. Is that something that you guys are also doing?
Yeah, for me, I probably won't play, like for me personally, I probably won't play ranked or anything for a couple weeks until after Thanksgiving. I think that's about the time that we'd get back to scrimming as well. For the rest of my teammates, I'm not really sure. I'd assume like Alec and Max are going to want to stream, so they'll probably play. I'm sure like Sam's got to hit some cues.
Right.
Probably same with Ben as well. So I'll probably be the only one who like full mental resets, but I think as a team, we won't start scrimming until like early December. And yeah, I'm just going to treat it how I used to treat like season 4 Worlds, season 3 Worlds, where like it used to be like regionals back then. And then you'd have this sort of like long break through the holidays. So I'm just going to treat it like that old schedule we used to have. And I think for me, it's mainly just like keeping up with the game or like constantly thinking of ideas. I think that's how you sort of progress. I think if you just want to like grind your head into a wall and play like 10 hours of Smite every day for 6 weeks, that's a really good way to burn yourself out mentally before the tournament.
Sure. Last thing here, and you know, it'd be remiss of me if I didn't ask. Yeah, what's in the tank for Worlds? Give us a little crumb. Give us a crumb. Give us a little hint.
Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. For me, the biggest thing that I kind of like is that there were some bugs at this past tournament that are getting fixed. So I feel like suddenly there's a couple characters that are a little bit more opened up, just like for myself personally or for my team. So it's really just going to take time to experiment with everything and like mess with all these characters. There's a lot of gods that I thought were really good at the tournament that I didn't even get to play. We only played 6 games. So yeah, I think just a lot of messing with stuff in scrims. I really have no idea what it might look like.
I mean, you already pulled out the Fenrir and the Nox. Like, what's left, right? Like,
yeah.
Alposh? Are we going to see the Alposh support? Is that
Alposh is broke? Alposh is broken, bro. He got his mana cost reduced on like everything. That god's got to be OP.
So that sort of wraps it up for all the questions I have, and that means there's only one question left, which is who you beefing with, and then consequently, who you trying to call out, and of course, I'll give you some time for shout-outs and, you know, some soapbox if you want to rant and rave about the SPL. The floor is yours, Mike.
Who am I beefing with? I don't know. I feel like I get along with everybody. I think I beef with people who complain too much. I feel like maybe that triggers me. Maybe I hate it when people complain about like rank too much. Not that anyone specifically does that, like Herwin, for example. But yeah, I don't know if I have anyone I'm beefing with. As far as like general comments on the game or whatever, I've heard some things from like plans for season 8, and I'm really excited for that. I think that should be a lot of fun.
Sure.
And, I don't know. I kind of don't play ranked that much anymore, so I don't have any ranked players to complain about. But okay, Dragon Story's titles actually have been like, they've been burning my eyes, man. He's like talking about Scylla and stuff, and I don't want to get into it, but like that's got to stop ASAP.
It's got to stop. I agree.
Yeah, like I want to boycott that completely and burn any of the like history behind that. I'm just done with that. But yeah, other than that, I'm good.
Yeah. What about shout-outs? Any shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah, I mean, just shout-outs to, I guess, like mainly to the fans for supporting just the entire league this year in the community. I think it's been a really rough like 2020 for everybody. The pandemic has sucked, and just like so many things have gone wrong this year, pretty much.
Yep.
So I think to have like a community where like Smite specifically, how active everybody is in streams and like how much people talk and just like the fan engagement this year, I think it's been really great. And I think it's like really carried what's otherwise probably a really crappy year for a lot of people. So yeah, I think that's like my main shout outs is to everybody who's like supporting the community and the league. And I think it's made it a much better year than it was probably going to be, for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, you're coming in the clutch here, saving us. You know, Cooper canceled on me, so PBM comes in the clutch again.
Right
yeah, so class. We'll get him on eventually. You know, it'll happen. But you know, I really want to give you my utmost appreciation for coming on here, and wish you and your team the best of luck going to Worlds. I mean, you don't have to play qualifier, so good luck in Worlds and good luck next season too. You know,
thanks, Pam.
I hope the best for season 8.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bud. I appreciate it a lot.
All right, let's move on to the second semifinal game of this Phase 2 playoffs, which was Space Station Gaming versus Radiance. I think we all probably expected a bit of a better showing here from the Space Station boys. Especially games 1 and 2, they seemed all sorts of discombobulated. Like both the drafts and the game, you know, going with like the Ama jungle in game 1 and the Kabrakan jungle in game 2. I mean, I think these are picks that we've sort of seen not work in the past, and they sort of end up there anyway before coming back game 3, but ultimately falling to Radiance in 4 games. What are you guys' thoughts on this? What were you expecting from SSG? Did you sort of expect these sorts of comps, or was there something else that you thought they might have brought out here?
Oh no, yeah, this is very SSG.
Sure. Wraith, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think the comps were very SSG. My personal opinion watching that set is I think they heavily underestimated Radiance. I think they either were trolling, thought they'd roll them, or didn't take them seriously. Because, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like SSG executed the way that we've seen them really cleanly play. And maybe, I don't know. Again, I don't know how you do that after watching Radiance kind of come out swinging, but I wasn't impressed with SSG's play.
Sure. I think we have to bring up adapting Circuit here. This has sort of been his comfort pick for this whole tournament. Was this something that you had expected or thought about as being a pick that might come out for this tournament, Chuck? You know, because it's not something that we had really been seeing in the SPL except for very occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kenneth's God Pool is kind of always going to be those sort of circuits, like that sort of play style. So it's like you're never surprised by it, but
sure,
you know, yeah. I mean, like if you look at the drafts between like both these teams, like Radiance kind of get everything they want, and then SSG, like you said, they pick very SSG drafts, but they're kind of SSG drafts when they lose. Like they're very experimental in the jungle with you know, armors and Kabrakans, which I mean I'm sure have some merit and like, you know, do work okay, but if you're running that into, you know, Radiance who have their comfort picks, like Benji's on Nike, Kenneth's on Circuit, and then they have Kuzenbo, Cupid, like that's just their bread and butter. Like they're going to be comfortable on that. So
yeah,
if you don't like jam in some sick Morrigan ganks and like start off some really nice fights with that, then it's gonna be an uphill battle into like a draft like that with a draft like what SSG had.
Sure. I did want to bring up in the set also that Cyclone basically only wanted to play Cupid and Heim. It seems like they were really prioritizing those two hunters for Cyclone during this tournament, especially. I don't think he played maybe anything else. He might have played a Rama game earlier on against you guys in PK. I can't recall, but you know, is there something to that? Just like saying, hey, like these are the picks I want to play no matter what, and let's make sure we get them.
Yeah, I mean, Radiance, I think, out of all the teams, was the most, like in hindsight, was the most prepared picks wise going into this tournament. Like you can clearly see, you know, trends in what they pick. Like they obviously knew what worked for them. Like they really loved the healing out of the Cupid and the pressure presence that it gave.
Yeah.
With the ult. So I feel like that's that's something that they've been hammering home in scrims in the lead up for a very long time, and obviously it was working out for them. So, Radiant's kind of just sticking with what they knew in that sense. So,
Sure. What would you guys have liked to have seen SSG do? Maybe in the later games in the set to sort of maybe try to pull it back. I know they did end up winning Game 3 off of, Dardas has a great slash line here, 7-1 and 8, and Nika also has a pretty good slash line as well.
I was pissed. Game 3, I said, "Don't you dare win this game unless you're gonna do the reverse sweep, because every game after this is gonna be useless."
Sure.
No. To me, I just have a thing against teams playing too hard into their own identity and then sort of suffering for it. SSG, while being SSG, is, like I've said, Sanguine Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And Sanguine Prime has the same Achilles heel that regular Sanguine has, is that they're very predictable when it comes to their draft and they're very comfortable with it. Except I don't know what the first game was. Does Nika still not like Amma? While SSG is like, yo, get her, we got to get her. All right, Nika, here you go. I'm not playing that. I refuse. I'm not. Cherry, you're playing. And then into the second game, I've not liked Cherry's Cabrakan. Ever since he went up against Ghost with it and got sort of fumbled, I've not liked his Cabrakan. I feel like he has his own meta of junglers kind of going. Very similar to Lasbra. He's got his own sort of pocket. I would like to see a wider god pool. And haven't you said, Apam, that maybe the key to beating SSG is to focus out Raffer?
Oh, this is what Zero said.
Was it Zeros? Okay, yeah. Because it just felt like Aurora had more room to do what he wanted, whereas while Raffer has a more traditional, I'm going to peel for my team style of play, you can only peel so much in a dive meta.
True. The last thing I want to mention is I was able to catch Raph's stream, I think, Saturday night. And I don't know if it was him or someone in the chat, but someone made a comment of it kind of seemed like, maybe it was even you, Frost, in your watch party. But so I heard somewhere that, the team maybe thought that Nika would be able to carry them in some of these games, as he's been able to do in the Pro League for a lot of the time in Phase 2. And that just sort of wasn't able to happen because Benji sort of kept Nika in check and didn't allow him to snowball from that solo lane very well. Is that something that you guys maybe also noticed, or was someone maybe reading a little too much into the play that happened in the game?
I don't think that was in mine, but because I feel like that would have sparked that conversation of I don't think a good successful plan is where this one person's going to carry it all, because then that one person's going to get banned out or targeted specifically as they're probably just going to go pick on him in solo lane or something. It just felt like SSG didn't get to play what they wanted, whereas Radiance did. I don't want to say it was lucky, but it just the matchups for these playoffs, the teams that won went up against the team that allowed them to play the game that they wanted. I think against others they probably would have struggled more, but we have seen SSG routinely struggle against Radiance.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the only game that SSG ended up winning was the game that they took away the Kuzenbo, took away the Cupid, and then also had Nike on top of that. So that sort of counters both what Radiance wants to do and is also more of a regular style draft out of SSG, where they're able to facilitate the Morrigan actually getting in and getting a bunch of kills.
All right, let's move on to the Phase 2 playoffs finals between Ghost and Radiance. And unfortunately, Ghost, again, just steamrolling through this whole league and this whole tournament. Game 2, I think, was pretty contested. The kills were very even, but Ghost are able to pull it out in the end. It seems like Radiance sort of found some comfort with Artio and Guan being their main tanks, but they weren't able to really affect Ghost in any meaningful way And on the other side, Final K seemed to just take set solo and run with it and really just run the game, as far as I'm concerned. Is that how you guys see it
played out
too?
of his goddamn brain that set.
Yeah.
It was unreal. It felt like he was in every position that he was supposed to be, in every team fight, with every ability, every active, every time. I watched that back with my brother a second time, and because after he got the MVP and everybody was kind of gassing him up, and I couldn't find a single time where he misplayed even to the slightest. Like, he played 3 perfect games. That was unreal out of him.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I think Fine was definitely Ghost's saving grace in this set. Like I said earlier, I don't think any team really, popped off this LAN. I think there was a lot of mistakes, but like on the team level. But like you said, like Fine was always that stabilizing force. Like, because Radiance also wasn't playing, the best smite that they could. Like, if they get a kill or they get a trade, but then people start getting low, if Fine's in that perfect position, then he's never gonna die and always gonna be able to clean up really well. So in that sort of situation, like when Fine's like switched on like that, it's gonna look really good for the team that has the set that's just running in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Radiants are degenerates. Did you notice they kept drafting more healing?
Yeah.
With each game, more and more healing, and I'm like, Christ, we're never gonna get healing nerfed.
Not if I have anything to do with it.
I mean, like, by game
You guys
3,
see the
everyone
tweet?
was healing, so.
Healing just enables you to do so much, especially at the competitive level, and then trickling down from that, like, it becomes so oppressive. As the team that doesn't have healing. Like, I think game 1, where in our set, like, Fred got chunked down to half HP by 1 Persephone plant. We deal some damage back, and they press Cupid 2 and Guan 1, and they're suddenly full health, and we have to give up like 3 objectives in a row.
Yeah.
Like, no one died, but we just can't play the game unless unless we hard win that team fight, and our draft is like perfectly positioned to counter their picks, like always dive, catch out the healers before they get more than like 1 rotation of abilities. Like, it's just so oppressive to play into.
I think it's also because like a lot of Smite players suck. You've got Roz throwing out team heals. Nobody stands in the circle. Healing is terrible. This Raw didn't even do it because there's a huge part of the community that just doesn't know how to play into their own team healing. So healing's not even that effective. And then you finally hit that skill gap where they all understand. I group up around the healers, even to the point of like, yo, we need healing. We have a Hades. Wait for him to touch the minions, and he's gonna heal us. Like, at that point, you've still got Diamond players just murdering the way for that. And then you get to the highest level where, even though you see how oppressive it is, you can thread that one team fight that'll knock out all the healers all at once. But to be at that level is just absolutely disgusting to try and get to that point. We're not there. So healing is OP, and I hate Ghost for making it look like it's just all it takes is wait for Radiance, because I think this happened in 2 games. Wait for Radiance to push up on the tier 1 tower, and the first time around they made it all the way to tier 2, and then they just ended up diving the backline. And then the 3rd game they only made it to the tier 1, and they waited for, like, say, the Ra heal. Oh, Guan just uses heal, go in now, because we also, on top of having Ra's that heal nobody, we have like Barons who use the 2 when they're at full health. What's that going to do for you?
It gives you movement speed.
Fantastic.
I mean, in this set, like a lot of the time, Radiance did look like they were in the driver's seat, at least for the beginning of the game. And it was only after they decide to hard in, like, overextend really badly, that Ghost is able to be like, okay, we'll take this and run with it, and start choking out the lead that Radiance could have gotten. And that's like that's the strongest point for healers to be in, right? Like, if you're down against a Ra, then good luck. You're not diving that man with 7,000 protections and healing every half a second, but like when that Raz team has just lost a team fight, like died 4 times, lost a tower, lost gold, then in a fight that they really shouldn't have lost, then all of a sudden it becomes much easier for the other team to just run over those healers.
Mm-hmm. I do want to mention quickly that there was some healing on Ghost. I mean, Set has healing, and they did play Hell in Game 2. And I believe Game 3 they also had some healing as well from Discordia picking up Soul Gem. Maybe incidental, I understand. I do want to talk a little bit about the picks and bans here, because I sort of have a bit of a hypothesis here that they've baited Radiance into picking Cupid over Set. Because there's only one player on Radiance that's going to play Set, and that's Cyclone. And I think, they're willing to maybe target ban a little bit, obviously, but also they're like, hey, if we think Cyclone's going to pick Cupid above, Set or Heim or any of these other things, maybe we can just bait him to picking that first, which they did every single game, and then we can get Set and Rama and Nox and whatever picks we want. Is that something that was calculated by the Ghost Gaming boys here?
That's epitome Ghost. If you notice, for like what was it, playoffs or any big games, Fine OK kind of has these moments where he, for a high pressure situation, there's a character that he believes is auto win. It's been Nike, it's been Cthulhu, and now it's Set.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a baiting him into it, but there are times where it's just if we get this character, we win, and I think that was just the confidence that Fine OK had in the Set.
Maybe not baiting, but just sort of like confirming that their only Set player on that team wasn't going to play Set,
I mean, it could have been a calculated play. I imagine they probably accounted for it, but the thing with Cupid is, if you feel confident into playing against it, then he is pretty counterable. Like, sprint exists, which kind of nullifies all of that. He isn't like a super oppressive healer like Ra or Hell that's just gonna, slam out massive healing numbers, especially in combat, just ducking in and out. At the end of the day, he is just an ADC that can die. So if you're feeling confident enough, then you can afford to ignore it in favor of locking in those sets and like high value characters.
Yeah.
He can't. Yes, I can't even be slowed by Cupid. But I think Radiance kind of drafted sort of the ultimate assault picks in the Conquest match, because they're fighting. When they didn't have the ultimates, Radiance had the upper hand. If it comes down to just your regular abilities, I think Radiance had the stronger team because they did have the healing. But we noticed when the fights finally broke out, it was when Ghost wanted them to, and it's when they all had the ultimates. When it came down for like a ult for ult, I think Ghost had the better team comp there. I don't think Radiance really was pressing proper when there were no ultimates. Even Ardio, she's the epitome of that. If she fights you when no one has ultimates, she's like the best character in the game. And as soon as the ults come up, she's probably like the worst character in the game.
Sure. Last thing I wanted to mention about this set, and we sort of touched on it just a little bit earlier, was the Nox support here for PBM, which he played twice, I think, in Games 2 and Game 3. Basically going the same build with Thebes and Stone of Binding and Pridwin. I imagine he sold his Stone of Binding in the Game 2 build here that's shown on the Smite Game website. Do we expect to see more of this Nox coming, maybe in qualifiers and looking forward into Worlds? Do we think other teams will try to play Nox in the support role or in the mid role, or are there other places we could see Nox? I know Lermy is always saying Nox jungle is the real deal, so let me know, guys. What's going to happen with Nox?
Nox is insane.
I think she's good, but I think it'll get played until it doesn't work, and then they'll stop. Like, if PBM, if it's the second game, and he busts it out, they've already won one, and they lose on it, he'll go back to other stuff.
Okay.
Yep. I think she's very high risk, high reward.
Yeah, it's like a sort of flavor of the month sort of thing where you whip it out, see how well it does. I mean, it still could be, sicko mode. Who
Yeah,
knows? Come
sure.
Worlds, but like as it is now, like it slotted in really well with the drafts that Ghost was running.
Mhm.
Like it's pretty powerful when the jungler has on-demand CC like Thor's and Hunbatz's.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then like Disco also has that CC, or Hell just runs around and keeps you up anyway.
Yep.
So and like it sort of facilitates the mid jungle picks in both of Ghost's draft. So it feels good when they pick it. It obviously felt pretty good into what Radiance picked in the end too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was sort of a perfect storm for the Nox pick.
I think it's also going to come down to, firstly, emotion.
Mm.
She is somewhat mechanically intensive, just because she feels, for lack of a better word, kind of clunky.
Yes.
Just the timing on the 1 and the 2.
Mhm.
But you can throw them both through walls now, so that kind of doesn't matter. However, if you do happen to have one game, just one game where you're even slightly off, and it comes down to like, this is why you lost, that character's not going on the shelf. You know, as some people say, oh, I lost, I'm not touching that character for 3 weeks. I'm never touching this character again. That's sort of how touch and go this character is right now. I also don't like the builds. Watching it, even in the Renegades game, it felt like until PBM got 20% or 30% CDR, she was useless, and she kind of is. But this is I don't know, for this is the character that we've been wanting as support. I think a lot of people have a sort of a closet Nox, and this is what it looks like. This is the you don't have one.
I don't want that guy to support. I don't want that guy in the game. What the hell are you talking about? What?
She's disgusting, though.
Oh, she's awful.
I think the reason we're okay with her, or at least a lot of support players are okay with her existing, is she's super risky.
Yeah.
If it comes to the point where she is actually capable of doing this, then you've got a better character than your Mojo almost.
Oh, her ult is the most disgusting part of her kit. I mean, it's like,
that
was
40% less damage
reduction.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Thanks for watching the SPL rundown this week. Be sure to check us out before Worlds occurs. I think we'll have an episode, and we'll also have an episode right after Worlds. So be sure to check us out then. If you want to see extended cuts of my discussions with these analysts, or my interviews with pro players or league operations managers, be sure to check out those on our YouTube. I think all of our extended cuts are up to date as of this episode. As always, if there are any future guests that you would like to see on this program, please feel free to DM me at Apam2 or at Apam Productions on Twitter. Thanks a lot for watching. See you guys soon.